everyone, it's Holly, and I'm here with a video that is inspired by something that I saw on Twitter earlier this year. And that is this idea of the mind's eye. It was something I had never really given a lot of thought to. And it's the ability for your mind to be able to visualize things, something, a person, a book, a story, whatever, in your brain. And this came up, I remember there was specifically an image where it was like 10 different types of apples, like different ways you could draw them. And it was like, when you hear the word apple, what do you think of? And it was like, which one of these? One's really detailed and one's more just like vague, like an outline, that kind of thing. And so there was a ton of talk inspired by this about what people see. And then I learned that there are people who don't have a mind's eye. Now I do, so that's weird to me. Like weird, not in like a judgy way, but weird in like when something is your everyday, you selfishly, for better or worse, you think everyone else's existence is like yours, unless you challenge your thought process, right? So I was amazed, and I was watching these YouTube videos talking to people about their experience and how they don't have this. And it was mind-blowing. And one of the things I saw over and over again was something like, a lot of these people that don't have a mind's eye, they don't like reading fiction, which kind of makes sense because you're not visualizing that story. So they have to like conceptualize things differently. And so they don't get the same enjoyment out of a fiction story that somebody with a mind's eye does. I don't know if there's been studies on this to see if this is a universal experience, but I found it really interesting. And so it made me think of something, and that is, what do you see and hear when you're reading? So I'm gonna start with hearing. I remember Sarah Wendell talking about this on the Smart Bitches podcast, and it was so long ago. It was like when Jane was still on the podcast, so there's like no way I can find it and verify what she said, but I feel like I remember her saying that she heard a male narrator in her voice as she read, or in her head as she read. And there are different people. Some people hear a male voice, some people hear a female voice, some people hear a gender neutral voice that's just like a vague voice in their head. For me personally, I don't hear anything. Like, I don't hear a voice in my head when I'm reading, which made me think there are people who like listening to music or have background noise or whatever when they're reading, and there's those who need complete silence. And I wonder if people who hear the voices in their head don't like listening to things in the background, because I don't hear voices and I do like having background noise, and I always have. My whole life, even in school, like I hated testing because it was always really quiet and it was really hard for me to focus and everything. And so I don't know if those two things are related, but I'd be curious to know if they were. So if you hear voices in your head when you're reading, do you like to listen to music or have background noise? Or are you like me? I don't know. And so then there's, what do you see when you're reading? And this has kind of always interested me because I'm in a lot of Facebook groups, like author groups and everything, and people are always sharing like their fan cast for stories and for books. And I don't fan cast. So I don't, generally speaking, I don't picture any characters like as fully fleshed out like human beings aesthetically. I will picture vague things about them. There's like one character in my whole life that I have a fan cast for. I believe I've talked about that before. And that's Connor Cobalt from Krista and Becca Ritchie's books. My fan cast is Aldous Hodge. He is Connor. Hot takes. That man in a suit is gorgeous. So the minute I like re-saw an episode of Leverage with him in a suit, I was like, that's Connor Cobalt. Like, it just clicked in my head. So that is like the only one. Every other character is just like this kind of vague. I wish I was an artist so I could like draw you what I see, but they're just like vague blobs. They usually have hair, but I very rarely give them the hair color that the author gives them. The men I read, especially if they're a love interest, are almost always brunette. Even if they're like canonically blonde. Yes, Jace Herondale is brunette. Women I change less than men, but again, I tend to view them as brunette. I don't know. Maybe that's because I think it's the most common hair color. So maybe that's just like default for my brain for like human being. I've talked about this before. I have a tendency to like change races of characters in my books. Most notably would be Crash Into You by Katie McGarry. That is Isaiah's book in that series, and he shows up in the prior 2 books, Pushing the Limits and Dare You To. And through both of those books, for no reason whatsoever, I just thought Isaiah was black. And then I bought Crash Into You when it came out, and I had the cover, and there was a white man on my cover, and I was very confused because Isaiah was black. And he's still black. In my head, 100%, he is black. I don't know who that man is on the cover, but that is not Isaiah. But again, I don't have like a fully fledged image of him in my head. Like I couldn't sit down with like a sketch artist and like describe him to you. I would just say like he's an average build, average height, black man, teenager. Like that's it. That's all I have for you. And that's like everything with my fiction. Like the setting, it's very like, it's almost like dreamlike, where like it's not fully formed, it's just like things are there when they need to be there, and like it's not, I don't have like these huge images in my head. But I'm sure there's other people who have like super detailed images, and I'm sure those are the people that like remember these minute details. Like they remember eye color and hair color, and I really only remember those things if 1, they're on the cover of a book, or 2, if it's like such a big deal. Like I think we'll all always remember what color eyes Edward Cullen has because it's only said like a million times throughout those books. And like Jace, I know he's blonde mainly because of the City of Bones cover, but in my head when I'm reading him, he's not blonde. So I don't know. It's very weird. I feel like it's very interesting to kind of think about like what different people see and think and hear. So yeah, that's what I see in here. If you want to let me know what you see in here, if anything at all, let me know. Sometimes thinking about this is kind of like a mind F. Like I start to think about it and it's like, I don't know about other people, but sometimes I get really anxious when I start to like analyze my brain, like how it's working, and like my brain's like abort, abort, abort. It's like I'm approaching the Matrix or something. I don't know. But that is what I see in here. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye.